Hey everyone, it's Lauren, PowerToFly's Director of Marketing and Community, coming to you to teach you a little bit more about pivoting to virtual events. Now, I'm really excited to cover some of the most asked questions that people have when considering pivoting and what that looks like and how to make the most of their experience and get the same amount of engagement from their virtual events that they would have had from in-person ones. So let's dive in. The first question that we have is, how do you hold a virtual event that allows for a speaker, Q&A, and then subsequent networking? Is it even possible? My answer to you is anything is possible. I recommend thinking about the best events that you've ever been to in person and writing down a list of all of the activities that you participate in during that in-person event, down to getting in the Uber to even go to the event, what beverages you receive when you arrive there, who greets you and networks with you, are you given swag at the end of the event, what really sticks out in your mind, and write it all down on a piece of paper. Then, once you've written down all of the steps and pieces of the pie that go into that in-person event, make another list and write down what you can do virtually. If you had any software option, money wasn't an issue, what would you do? And then start Googling, start watching presentations like this one, hearing from other thought leaders, and matching those wants and needs up to programs, software, platforms that can meet those needs. Trust me when I say that there is a platform and a software out there that can do everything on your list. At PowerToFly, we've even found virtual swag offerings that we can send people. So if they want to, get a certain wine or beverage or food that we would have for any of our in-person events, we can send them a virtual gift card 24, 48 hours before the actual event happens, and all of our event attendees can get that food or drink or beverage or swag and have it for the actual event. So don't limit yourself or think that just because your event has gone virtual that you can't have everything that you would have in person. Now, if we're specifically talking about, a panel discussion, a keynote with Q&A and subsequent networking, find a software that allows you to really interact with all of your participants. So, really my number one tip is to think about meeting software, not webinar software. Meeting software is a software that everyone can be on camera. It perhaps has breakout rooms or other interactive features that allow you to kind of transition the event to or through all of these different pieces. So you have a moderator who kicks off the event, they welcome everyone, they do their keynote speech, and then perhaps you go into a live Q&A where you pepper through the attendee list and everyone's allowed to come off mute and ask a question, or they write in the chat. And then you further divide these people up into breakout rooms, either one-on-one, or maybe you provide subsequent Zoom links or Google Meet links that people can, meet up based on a specific skill or location. Truthfully, you're at an advantage now that we're virtual because the world is your oyster. You're not forced into only having a certain group of people who maybe can't pay for parking or find childcare. To have this in-person event. You really are now reaching a global audience, and that's only going to boost your numbers. Our next question here is about pivoting. So, love this question. My team and I are exploring options on how to best pivot our normal in-person career fair to a virtual platform. Do we need to rethink the event entirely, shift our goals, etc., now that it's likely to be a virtual event? Now, just like I had mentioned about the actual agenda of the event, goals for in-person events should be exactly the same as virtual events. And that's really important because it's going to help structure how and why you do certain things virtually that maybe you don't do in person, or maybe you need to focus a little bit more on when it comes to virtual. So a really good example of this is this RSVP to attendee ratio. Now, For an in-person event, there are clear statistics out there that say in certain cities and in certain locales, you're going to get a X% attrition rate. In New York, you're going to have maybe 30% of the people that you invite show up. It's even lower in San Francisco, these major tech hubs. But if you're hosting an in-person event in, let's say, Boise, Idaho, or where I'm located in upstate New York, if you say you're going to an event, most likely you're going to show up. What's different about virtual in this sense is that you're hitting people now from locations all over the globe. And this attrition rate is actually lowered. So what that means is that more people who are attending your event are going to actually show up, especially if you can engage these people prior to your conversation and give these people what they want during your virtual event. So if we're talking specifically about in-person career fair to a virtual career fair, what's your goal of the career fair? Is your goal to connect as many people, so talent, with hiring managers? So that would be kind of correlating to an RSVP list. Getting your RSVP list to be the biggest and baddest RSVP list it possibly can be. Absolutely can be done virtually, actually better, because again, your people don't have to pay for parking. They, may or may not have to be free that evening. They can just sign up and get connected to these hiring managers. Another goal is it actually hires. How many hires are people getting from people who attend the career fair? Goal doesn't change. So really, when you're setting goals and talking about pivoting events, the goals don't change. And we just talked about the agenda. So the best advice that I have is put those thoughts and those objectives down on a piece of paper and hold yourself accountable for them and walk through exactly what each step of that process looks like and how you can use this new virtual format not to just achieve those goals, but to really exceed them. I'm telling you, it's totally possible. Our third question here is about webinars. So do you recommend doing webinars live or recorded? So this is an easy one. Absolutely do them live. So the benefit of doing something live is that you're going to get that real-time engagement. Always, always, always record your events. Even if they are silly, networking, group chats, record it, because truthfully, this recording is just going to be fodder for any of your events moving forward. So if you're using platforms like Zoom, GoToMeeting, BlueJeans, depending on the packages that you've purchased for the software, a lot of them give you options when it comes to your recordings. So I know Zoom because that is my platform of choice, but when you record an event, you can record speaker view, gallery view, presentation, audio, chat. I mean, you name it, you can get that piece of the recording. And think about it this way. So we're not in person. We can't get videos of people shaking hands or smiling when they walk into the door. But by having each of these individual pieces of the recording, now you're getting the speaker, talking through their presentation. You're getting everyone in a cute little black bubble in Zoom, smiling at certain points or waving, or you can even craft something during the conversation where you get everyone to make a funny face or put on sunglasses. I mean, you name it, the world is your oyster. But if you don't record that, you're not going to be able to capture that and use the footage for either promotion of your event afterwards or as fodder for any bit of your organization or company moving forward. So absolutely, absolutely do as much as you can live and record everything. You never know when someone's going to give you, a world-class testimonial or do something super spontaneous that you wouldn't have the opportunity to capture otherwise. So do it live and absolutely record it. Our next question here is preparation. How do I decide if a virtual event works for my event, and what are the best ways to prepare? So like I said, the very first question, if you can do it in person, you can do it virtually. But to set yourself up for success, the best way to prepare is to practice. There are lots of nuances in a lot of these softwares, and believe it or not, people are still pretty uncomfortable with some of the functionality. So my best suggestion is to absolutely do a full run through a few days before the virtual event, and then run internally with your team a few times before. Make sure your moderator is completely prepared with not only, the functionality of the software and the platform that you're using, but comfortable engaging with the people attending the event and with the content. If they're not comfortable, it's okay to bring on a few extra people to be facilitators throughout the event. So if I'm moderating, perhaps one of my teammates is going to be in control of the chat and answering questions and sending links and answering private messages. Maybe I even have a third person that's running the slides on the screen. Really great moderators can do all of these things at once, but truthfully, that takes time and it takes practice. And the only way that you are going to get better at this, as with all things, is through practice. So try it out, do it a few times on your own with your team, and then, after a few run-throughs, you will be feeling super comfortable about what comes out of that virtual event. But again, how do I decide if it works? It will work. You just need to write it down and then find a software that matches your goals and your event objectives. Next up here is social media. Any ideas on how to use social media to complement and drive engagement during a virtual event? So I'm going to pivot this question and actually say you should be using social media both before, during, and after your event, just like you would for an in-person one. So what my thoughts here are: absolutely promote. Going back to the world is your oyster here. Anyone can attend this event, so don't limit yourself to who's attended in the past or people in your location, unless that's really what your goal is for the virtual event. But reach out to, members of different groups, Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, meetup groups. We all know that they're struggling right now to provide content to their users. So use social media to find and connect with like-minded people. And then, in the traditional sense, just raise awareness and drive page views and impressions to your event. During the actual event, I absolutely recommend encouraging the attendees to, like I said, turn your cameras on, come off mute, ask questions, participate, and then give them that platform to share that information on social media. Your event should have a hashtag or a dedicated social page where users can share screenshots or their thoughts, their learnings. Again, any bit of engagement that you're creating before, during, and truthfully after is fodder for you to promote your next event. Another reason to record everything. If you are not promoting your event post-event, especially because it's virtual, you are just doing yourself a disservice. So you have a recording, or you have testimonials, or you have, content that you're creating after the event based on what was shared during the event. Those are all great tools and resources that you can utilize to share after the event is over. And then, of course, drive engagement and RSVPs to that next event. So I don't want you to think of social media just as this platform or place for you to spam before an event to get as many people as you can to sign up, because that's not, the best use of your time. Be more strategic with your outreach. Find those like-minded people, like-minded groups, those influencers, and not, influencers for influencers' sake, but people who really care about what you're talking about, and get them involved and participating with all of your content, not just this one event. And then our final question here is clients. So what to tell clients when they're nervous that virtual events won't engage the audience to the same extent? This is my favorite question, and something that I'm really excited about that we do a really good job of at PowerToFly. And that is, give the people who are coming to your event what they want, and they will engage. I really hate when people create webinars or virtual presentations that are 60 minutes of me talking at you and telling you what you should be doing, when I'm joining the conversation because I want to know either something very specific or learn from a specific example or testimonial that you're sharing throughout the conversation. I'm joining these events to interact and engage with you. It's on you and your organization, so the moderator, the people behind the event, to create programming that really resonates with the people that are showing up to your events. So a few ways to do this is to simply ask the people what they want to hear. Don't make the entire conversation me speaking at you. Don't make the whole thing a keynote or, a straight up panel. Allow people to submit questions prior to the actual event itself, and then generate your content around those questions. Maybe it's so far off from what you thought people wanted to hear, but that's good because now you know, and you're giving these attendees a reason to not only show up to the event, but to stay, ask questions, and participate. So questions, great way to engage the audience. Polls. Lots of these softwares, especially the meeting softwares, have these interactive features like polls, like screen share, whiteboard, breakout rooms, annotation, just really simple ways to get the attendees involved and engaged and participating throughout the call. So utilize those to your advantage and really, spark something within these people. Make them want to participate. Offer something to them. Prompt questions as you go throughout the chat or throughout the conversation, and have people respond in the chat. There's so many ways to foster engagement, and truly finding moderators who are personable people and want to, just engage and hear from the community and really care about what people have to say. That's also just another, leap over the hill to throwing a successful event. Not everybody's a great moderator. And the same can be said for virtual events. So there's a lot to unpack there, but don't be nervous. Virtual is the new way of the world, and we're all going there. We're all in this together, and the sooner that you embrace this and practice it and find out what your community wants, the sooner that you can be successful and really throw an event or virtual conversation, Q&A. I really hate the term webinar, so we'll cover that at a later date, but just find a virtual way to communicate with your audience or your community is really going to make you stand out as a thought leader in your industry or, in your silo. So that kind of concludes my brief demo on pivoting to virtual and how it can be done and what you should do. But truthfully, this is only the beginning. We are just scraping the base of the iceberg when it comes to hosting virtual events. And there's so many great options for software and tools and resources and things that we can do to further elevate this. But I just want to say it can be done. Don't be nervous. We love virtual events at PowerToFly, so much so that we are hosting our very first mega summit this June and expecting over 10,000 women to attend virtually, all done through our own internal software and event process. So it's going to be an amazing event, and what is life if you don't conquer a couple of challenges? So thank you all so much for your time, and I hope to see you virtually at one of our events very soon.